The term culture originates from the Latin word cultivate. Communities are generally made up of people who share cultural characteristics. These cultural characteristics are defined by various influences, including geographical, spiritual, and agricultural considerations. Certain cultures impose distinct limitations or boundaries that make them unique. The purpose of this program is to introduce you to the most interesting and unique cultures from around the world. Taiwan lies to the north of the Philippines and 160 kilometers southeast off the coast of the People's Democratic Republic of China. The island, now populated by more than 23 million inhabitants, has a long and very dramatic history. Jersey is the largest of the 7 islands known as the Channel Islands. It lies in the English Channel between France and Great Britain. llha Formosa, or Beautiful Island, were the words uttered by Portuguese sailors when they first laid eyes on Taiwan in the 16th century. For many years, the island was known around the world as Formosa. Today, the island is better known under its Chinese name, Taiwan, which means terraced bay. However, the official name is the Chinese Republic. But this name is not accepted by the People's Republic of China, who considers Taiwan its province. It is a rather complicated issue, one that even the United Nations remains unclear on. In the very heart of Taiwan, by the lake of sun and moon, we are welcomed by the sound of bells. People hang the bells along with their names in front of the Buddhist temple to ask for God's blessings. For the Chinese arriving from the mainland, the temples were not only a place of prayer, but also a meeting place and a link with the mainland culture. In the fishing village of Nanfang Ao, such a connection is obvious in the Temple of the Southern Skies. The rooftops of the temple are adorned by typical Chinese symbols: a dragon, symbolizing the emperor, a phoenix, symbolizing the empress, and 2 dragons with the sun between them, depicting the empire. The entrance is decorated with lovely relief scenes carved into a single slab of stone imported from the mainland. The immigrants who worship in this temple brought with them a devotion to the goddess Matsu. During her short life as a mortal, she carried out many a noble deed. She saved the lives of her 2 brothers when they got into serious trouble while fishing. For that, she became known as the Goddess of the Sea and the Protector of Sailors. As such, she is considered the main patron of Taiwan. An event that took place in the Longsham Temple during the Second World War deepened the respect felt towards the goddess Matsu. Towards the end of the war, while the Americans were bombing, the endangered inhabitants of the town gathered here. It is said that Matsu, answering their prayers, appeared in the sky and diverted the bombs from the temple. Regardless of whether this legend is true or not, one thing is certain. the Longshang Temple remains a perfect example of Taiwanese religious tolerance. Every day, Buddhists, Taoists, as well as Confucianists come here to pray, and the male and female worshippers are of all ages. The spiritual symbolism of temples has a deeper social reach. They are, from time to time, used for other than religious purposes. By way of example, the temple is being used as the background for a photo shoot with the very popular stars of the Chinese opera company. Attention, please. The show is about to begin. This is a classic love story. A young man who comes from a wealthy family has fallen in love with a girl from a less fortunate family. The young man's father is displeased. He charges onto the scene in a rage and threatens the girl. The young man is in agony. The fact that the young man is played by a woman is unimportant. The multi-generational audience is enthralled. Puppet shows are also a common sight in Taiwanese temples. Should you expect the plot to be just another love story, you'll be disappointed. This story is about two characters, half an hour's merciless effort of one warrior to dispose of the other as brutally as possible. And of course, the extraordinary endurance and cunningness of the weaker character, all portrayed by a single puppet master. Puppet shows are rooted in Taiwan's distant past, but today are a bit of a phenomenon. Their popularity in modern times is indeed incredible. Over 300 puppet companies operate in the country. There's even a cable TV station which broadcasts puppet shows 24/7. Taiwan is in sync with modern times. The Changtai Temple is such an example. It is the most talked about house of God of Zen Buddhism. It can hold as many as 1,200 monks. The building itself is in the shape of a sitting monk. The interior is quite striking. It is located in a valley in the mountains. In the entrance hall, there are 4 statues, each 12 meters tall. These figures are meant to remind us to do good and not to succumb to the temptations of evil. The temple consists of 3 main halls, each containing a statue of Buddha. In the first hall, there is a Buddha made of granite teaching his 2 loyal followers. In another hall, we find a golden statue of Buddha that represents his magnificence. The last hall contains a 4-story statue of Buddha that expresses the inner peace and purity of Buddha. It is a stunning piece of work that dwells within an environment that contains both natural and artificial light. The monastery consists of 37 levels. An elevator would surely come in handy. The monastery offers a balance between the material and spiritual world, between the people and nature, and between technology and tradition. The 7-story pagoda is located at the center of this modern temple. It is made of teak wood. The construction did not use a single nail so as to follow the traditional method of temple building. The spiritual father of this project was Master Wei Chua. Part of his motivation was to demonstrate that Buddhism is truly an integral part of global development, and that even a Buddhist temple can have a modern face. Architect C.Y. Lee, who designed the temple, is also a force behind the Taipei 101 project. The Taipei 101 project also combines tradition with ultra-modern architecture. It took 7 years to complete this project, which was the same amount of time it took to complete the Chung Tai Monastery. It is an elegant skyscraper in the shape of a bamboo stalk, rising an unbelievable 508 meters and 101 floors. Until recently, it was the highest building in the world. It was built so as to withstand a 7.0 Richter scale earthquake. For the Taiwanese, bamboo is a symbol of pliability, resilience, and strength. This Taipei building was dedicated to the founder of the Chinese Republic, Chiang Kai-shek. He was the leader of the People's Chinese Republic who was challenged by Mao Zedong in the 1949 struggle for power within the Kuomintang Communist Party. Facing defeat, Chiang Kai-shek departed for Taiwan, determined to create the only true China. He took with him the entire collection of art from the Forbidden City, soldiers, the political government, and even the national flag. Considering the heat, it is hard work being a member of the President's Guard. Thankfully, a colleague with a handkerchief is nearby. The ceremonial changing of the guard is taking place. This young cadet has got a long way to go, but he will learn. This is Tao Fen, the gold diggers' town, but true gold diggers are no longer to be found here. In the middle of the last century, the Japanese occupation here not only led to the death of 10,000 Taiwanese, but also the plundering of local gold mines. Here on the streets, you find the evidence of a respect for tradition. Walking through the picturesque city, one can enjoy, among other things, the sweet sound of the ceramic hun flute. It is traditionally decorated with Chinese dragons or decorative script. It is interesting to note that street signs in Taiwan still use what is considered Old Chinese, as opposed to mainland China, where reforms have simplified the writing. The Old Chinese signs are seen on these pages, unfortunately, just for a little while. These special pages are only used for practice. Because the signs are made using only water, they vanish all too quickly. The best brushes are made from tails of wolves. In the local stores, you can find a wide variety of brushes, including a brush that measures 1 meter in length. The local tea drinking culture also has its roots in the ancient past. The first tea plantations were established by Buddhist monks in the 18th century. It is believed that tea revives the soul, cleanses the heart, and clears the mind. But it is the perception of tea's spiritual quality that keeps this ancient tradition of tea drinking inseparable from modern culture. Wang's Tea Room is one of the oldest of its kind in Taiwan. It has been in operation for over 100 years. The best tea is handmade, not for the lack of machinery, but simply because the best quality tea deserves the attention of the artistic touch of the human hand. Tea is believed to be a gift from God and is handled as such. The most popular Taiwanese tea goes under the noble name of oolong, which means black dragon. One tradition that expresses the unity and cultural identity of the Taiwanese is demonstrated when the family sits in a circle to drink tea. Tea is ever present, even found on temple altars. It is used as a toast in the wedding ceremony. Its preparation is a ritual. Each movement has its order and meaning. Tea preparation must reflect the inner beauty and respect of the one who serves it. According to Taiwanese tradition, it is essential to experience tea with all of one's senses, and thus, even the way tea is served is of extreme importance. The tea service is meant to please the eyes and is often accompanied by a simple flower arrangement. Using the correct ceramics for the tea service heightens the pleasure to the touch. The structure of the glazing and the hand-painted designs on the surface are meant to enchant the lips and fingers. Simplicity is the underlying theme. The decorations on the ceramics or flower accessories should never trump the tea itself, but merely complement by way of simplicity and inner beauty. The journey through Taiwan comes to an end. The Portuguese sailors were right. It is a beautiful island. It enchants you with its natural beauty. Taiwan is modern and yet pays respect to its traditions and poignant history. Next, we shall leave the beautiful island behind and head off to Europe, to a place that gave inspiration to a state in the United States. Welcome to Jersey, one of 7 islands that are a part of the Channel Islands. Here, the local culture has been influenced by its unique position within the English Channel. Although Jersey is in fact a British Crown dependency, the French influence here is unmistakable. But Jersey does have its own government, currency, and parliament. Jersey has not had a peaceful history. The war between England and France over the dominance of the Channel Islands took the better part of 5 centuries. The last and decisive battle took place on January 6, 1781, on the King's Square in St. Helier. A unit of Scottish mountaineers, together with the local militia under the leadership of Major Pearson, soundly defeated the French conquerors. Bullet marks are still apparent in the square's facade. After the victory, George Carteret, the local royal administrator at the time, pledged his loyalty to the British Crown and was rewarded with land colonized by the British in North America. That land became the state of today's New Jersey. St. Helier and the island as a whole rank today among the wealthiest places on the planet. It is a so-called tax haven. The local tax laws are extremely attractive to foreigners and their companies. However, the tax laws require that a company that is registered in Jersey must have their home office located on the island. So, to comply, foreign companies pay locals considerable sums to use their address. As a result, there are tens of thousands of companies with offices in Jersey and over 150 billion pounds sterling in the local banks. To see examples of the local wealth here, one need look no farther than a parking lot. There are more Porsche cars per capita in Jersey than anywhere else in the world. The placement of this rather obscure sculptural group may seem surprising, though there is logic here. Jersey has achieved prominence worldwide for their champion milking cows. The Jersey cows enjoy extraordinary status, seen here in their luxury abodes. There is a price to pay, however. The cows are sedated before having their horns removed so that they may live together in great herds and not harm one another. Jersey cattle are the second most common breed of cattle in the world. There are an estimated 5 million of these animals scattered all over the world. The delicious milk of the Jersey cow contains 5% fat. In fact, Queen Victoria II demanded this milk be the only milk put in her tea. These islands still carry civil laws on their books that no doubt seem out of date. For instance, the law says a man may beat his wife, but may only use a twig or a stick no thicker than his little finger. That would rule out the use of walking sticks made from the stems of giant cabbage. Long ago in Jersey, cabbage grew to a height of 5.5 meters. Should you feel like some cabbage for dinner, you might want to bring an axe. One last archaic Jersey law before we go. The owners of land are obliged to maintain the trees and shrubs on their land at an exact minimal distance from paths and roads. Areas are regularly inspected by a special commission, and those found neglectful can be punished with a £50 sterling penalty. But considering the wealth in Jersey, the greater punishment might be the publication of the offender's name in the local papers. Today's episode of Unusual Cultures has taken us to opposite sides of the globe to encounter two unique islands. But they do have one thing in common: cultures whose roots run through a deep, inspiring history, reflecting an unending respect for their ancestral heritage and traditions. In the next episode, we shall become acquainted with two entirely different faces of Africa. We will first visit the ancient Moroccan city of Fez, which is closely linked to the Islamic culture. Fez, with its narrow cobbled streets, artisanal workshops, bakeries, and coffee houses, still maintains its medieval character. After that, we will cross the African continent to Zimbabwe, a country abundant with remarkable natural wealth and a history that dates back to prehistoric times.